A legend in the world of dance known simply as Madame. Creator of the Royal Ballet. Ruthless, formidable.
I suppose it was Madame's way of controlling us, but there might have been some dancers who didn't like that.
Visionary and unique.
She was a very remarkable, I think, very fine choreographer.
BBC Two celebrates the 100th birthday of Dame Ninette de Valois. Call Me Madame, next Saturday at 6:35 on BBC Two.
A string of murders and the police are closing in.
I noticed a rather odd, youngish man hanging around.
I think you've seen our killer.
A sensational election looms.
I'd say that this could be the Reform Party's big moment, Geoffrey.
And a bloodless coup unfolds at the BBC.
The man is a boneheaded idiot with the aesthetic sensitivity of a pork scratchy.
In other words, the controller of BBC One, Charles.
In the Red continues. Tuesday at 9 on BBC Two.
With the memories of the Bosnian conflict still fresh in our minds, it would seem that another more disastrous war is possibly in the making. Phil Rees reports in a correspondent special on BBC Two in 15 minutes. Now on BBC Two, the day's news and sport from Chris Lowe and Helen Rollison.
Pakistan has carried out another nuclear test. That's one more than India. They say it's self-defence, but Britain says Pakistan has flagrantly disregarded international opinion. A man is critically ill after 12 hours trapped under rubble in a trench. And the Spice Girls, do they really want to split up? Good evening. Pakistan has carried out another nuclear test, but said it was now ready to hold talks with India to prevent the dangers of nuclear conflagration. The explosion took place in Balochistan, close to where 5 explosions were carried out last Thursday. The Foreign Secretary, Robin Cook, said Pakistan had acted in flagrant disregard of international opinion. President Clinton appealed to India and Pakistan to resume direct dialogue and said such tests would only serve to increase tensions in an already volatile region. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent David Loyne reports from Islamabad.
In the remote deserts of Balochistan, only a few kilometres from Pakistan's nuclear test site, the first villagers knew there were to be any tests was when they were moved from their homes. The camel herder says he had to leave everything behind, including his gold. They say they felt tremors like an earthquake on Thursday. There was another tremor this morning when Pakistan went beyond India's 5 tests with one more. The Foreign Secretary said they're testing weapons which could be used, although he wouldn't specify the missiles they're designed for.
Our tests were only reactive, while India's were provocative. After India's nuclear tests and its overt nuclear weaponization and its repeated threats to Pakistan for military action in Kashmir, I think the whole security environment in South Asia has changed.
On the streets, where Pakistani newspapers again rushed out special editions, there was no fear of the rising nuclear tension, but only praise for Pakistan's response, although it's here in the back streets of a country where tens of millions of people are still very poor that the effects of the economic problems caused by sanctions will be felt. Faced by a nuclear neighbour, Pakistan has appealed to the world for a new way of dealing with such disputes. But the world prefers the old ways, condemnation and economic sanctions, to bring Pakistan into line. David Loyne, BBC News, Islamabad.
A man is in a critical condition in a Leeds hospital tonight after he was rescued from a trench which collapsed on top of him. 18-year-old Jed Christie was trapped for 12 hours under tons of rubble before he was freed by firemen.
The emergency began around tea time yesterday, and by nightfall, fire crews and ambulance teams were still striving to rescue the trapped man. He was pinned at the bottom of the 20-foot trench, buried up to his waist, when tons of earth and gravel gave way. 18-year-old Jed Christie was laying pipes while another man was working in an excavator. As the night wore on, there were several further slippages, and rescuers worked with their hands to remove debris from around the pipe layer. Mr. Christie was saved from the full weight of the collapse by a boulder which fell next to him. He was conscious throughout the rescue effort, but was placed on a drip and given warm water to drink. By early morning, with Mr. Christie's condition deteriorating, fire officers decided to place him in a harness and pull him out. One witness said he came out like a cork from a bottle. He was suffering a broken leg and hypothermia, but for the fire crews, it was a moment of relief after a hazardous operation.
It was quite difficult. There was always a risk of further collapse of the trench, and obviously we had to ensure that our crews and anybody who was working down there were all in a safe working environment, so we had to look after their safety.
The rescued man, evidently in good spirits, was taken to Leeds General Infirmary. The Health and Safety Executive was called in to conduct an immediate investigation. While Mr. Christie is being kept under observation in hospital, the Health and Safety Executive are beginning their inquiry. Top of their list of questions will be what measures were taken to ensure the trench was properly shored up before pipe-laying work began. Mike Mackay, BBC News, Leeds General Infirmary.
Thousands of airline passengers across Britain have faced delays because of action by Spanish air traffic controllers. Passengers at Glasgow Airport were among the worst hit. They were asked to check in as normal, but were warned that they could face delays of between 2 and 9 hours. The Spanish air traffic controllers have now ended their strike, but they've begun a work to rule. Hundreds of children from around the world have gathered in Geneva to protest against child labour. A conference opens in the city next week to discuss a new convention aimed at abolishing the worst forms of exploitation.
They've travelled by foot, bus and plane through 43 countries. Many are child workers themselves, and today sees the end of a long journey of hope.
Well, it is for the first time the world community is discussing on the most exploitative forms of child labour. I know that it is not going to be a miracle, but it's a great start.
The Global March began in January in Manila in the Philippines. Other legs of the march set off soon after from Cape Town in South Africa and Sao Paulo in Brazil. Some of the worst forms of child labour can be found in countries like Nepal. We found whole families working in this stone quarry, many working a lifetime to repay loans given to them by the quarry's owners. 12-year-old Manda has worked here for 2 years.
I start work at 6 a.m. and I also have to cook meals for my family. It's hard, and yes, I'd like to go to school and study with other children, but I have to work so we can eat.
The children work to survive, but sometimes the consequences are horrific. This girl's leg is badly infected after it was shattered when a boulder fell on it. Her only chance is a local charity who will now pay for her leg to be amputated.
Next week's conference, held by the International Labour Organization, is expected to agree to a new set of laws aimed to put an end to the worst forms of child labour. It's hoped governments across the globe will sign up to it. But with a total of 250 million child workers worldwide, real change won't come easy. Chris Rogers, BBC News, Geneva.
There's increasing speculation that Geri Halliwell is leaving the Spice Girls. Lawyers for Ginger Spice and the rest of the group are reported to be holding crisis talks this weekend. In the last few days, she's missed the National Lottery draw and 2 performances in Oslo.
Whether they break up or stick together, the Spice Girls' CDs and videos continue to sell, while their fans ponder their future.
It's upsetting and everything, because I've been used to seeing them all together and that. I've got loads of videos of them, and it won't be the same without her.
You just can't have a band without one of the members. And it's like, take that, they just did not go on without Robbie Williams, because you just can't. It wouldn't work.
60s Twiggy set the pace, way back then she had the bass.
The band has played its last 2 concerts in Oslo as a foursome, rounding off the European leg of their world tour. With Geri Halliwell, better known as Ginger Spice, still missing from their lineup, the girls' lawyers are said to be discussing the band's future this weekend. Their record company, Virgin Records, admit there has been a rift, but say that's nothing new. There are also reports that Ginger Spice has already quit the band for a solo career. The group's rapid rise has seen them rub shoulders with world leaders and royalty, and Ginger Spice isn't usually shy of publicity. But she's currently thought to be in hiding somewhere on the continent.
All that I want from you is
Whether Ginger Spice will be there with the band could be announced before the start of their sellout American tour in 2 weeks' time. James Helm, BBC News.
Now with news of the rest of the day's sport, here's Helen Rollison.
Thanks, Chris. The England coach, Glenn Hoddle, has said that he hasn't yet decided who's in and who's out for this summer's World Cup. It's an extremely tense time for several players uncertain of their place. The final 22-man squad will be named on Monday.
In his room in the England hotel, Glenn Hoddle will decide who will and who won't feature in his plans for France '98. To help him make up his mind, he'll be watching videos of the 2 friendlies played in Morocco.
There's been negatives and positives, and I think I've got a couple of days really to chew everything over and finally come up with a 22. I've said all along there's a couple of places up for grabs, and now everyone, we've finished all the games, and there's a few people who've done themselves favours and a few that have done not so well.
But he still thinks the trip was valuable preparation and that his players are now ready for the challenge ahead.
They're going into a World Cup. There's young men in there, and there's other players there that possibly might feel it's their last World Cup, and there's youngsters in there with excitement and anticipation. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I know the nation are as well. We just hope that we get off to a good start, and that, that everyone gets behind us.
It'll be an anxious time for the players. The unlucky ones will be taken aside individually and told by Hoddle why they won't be in the squad. Pre-World Cup training is now over for everyone. Back in Spain, the players will be out on the golf course over the weekend, hoping the news for them will be positive.
22 names will be announced here on Monday, the players who will be carrying English hopes in France. Despite poor recent form, Glenn Hoddle insists they still have a realistic chance of winning the World Cup. Neil Bennett, BBC News, at La Manga in southern Spain.
And Scotland have just kicked off in their last warm-up game before the World Cup. They're playing another of the qualifiers, the USA in Washington. The latest score is USA 0, Scotland 0. Southampton's Kevin Davies is joining Blackburn Rovers for a club record fee of £7.5 million. The 21-year-old scored 12 goals last season for Southampton after joining them for £700,000 from Chesterfield. Blackburn were keen to strengthen their attack ahead of their UEFA Cup campaign next season. South Africa are in a strong position in their tour match against Gloucestershire at Bristol. After declaring this morning at 416 for 8, South Africa's bowlers quickly took command. Hayward taking a sharp catch to remove McMillan. Mark Lane made a good half-century, but at the close of play, Gloucestershire were 265 for 6. In rugby union, Scotland have bounced back from their midweek defeat against Fiji with victory in the first match of their tour of Australia. The tourists beat Victoria 42-13 in Melbourne, scoring 6 tries to 1. Meanwhile, Ireland had a winning start to their tour of South Africa with a 48-35 win over Boland. Ireland scored 6 tries, the best of the bunch coming from James Topping midway through the first half. In Rugby League Super League, Sheffield's poor home form continues. They were beaten by 28 points to 22 by Halifax at the Don Valley Stadium this afternoon. In the French Open Tennis Championship, Russian qualifier Marat Safin, who's already knocked out Agassi, and the defending champion Gustavo Kuerten, continued his successful run by beating Daniel Varcek today. He'll play Cedric Pierlin in the 4th round. Pierlin beat 10th seed Richard Krajicek. The former Wimbledon champion from the Netherlands was defeated 6-3, 6-2, 7-5 by the Frenchman. Marcelo Rios is now the only men's top 10 seed remaining. In the women's game, 16-year-old Serena Williams caught the eye with serves of over 100 miles an hour to win 6-1, 6-1 against 15th seed Dominique van Roost. She plays 2-times champion Arantxa Sanchez Vicario next. And Boris Becker has confirmed today that he'll miss this year's Wimbledon. The 20-to-1 outsider Magic Rainbow, ridden by Richard Mullen, was the surprise winner at the Coral Sprint Handicap at Newmarket this afternoon. After taking up the running a furlong out, the Michael Bell-trained horse managed to hold off the challenge of Night Shot, who finished second. Pip Song was third. And Darren Clarke is leading golf's Deutsche Bank Open in Hamburg after the second round, with Colin Montgomery just 1 shot behind. Chris.
And that's all for now. Helen will be joined by Michael Burke for the main news on BBC One, and that's at 10 to 10. So from me, good evening.
Hello again. There's yet another band of rain gathering itself over southwest England now, pushing up through the channel. Some of it could well turn out to be quite heavy and thundery as we go through the night. So we've got a weather watch out. There could be some more thundery downpours, particularly in southwest England tonight, adding to some local flooding. And then we'll see this band of showery rain continuing to work its way northwards, I think by the end of the night, South Wales, the South Midlands, down towards Suffolk too. But not a cold night, 8 or 9 the low, so a pretty mild night just about everywhere. And then as far as tomorrow's concerned, then these showers over the central parts continue to work their way up into northern parts of England, rather more in the way of showers by that time rather than more persistent rain, brightening up over the southeast and south, but still 1 or 2 showers, still very grey along that northeastern coast of England, eastern parts of Scotland, and some rain continuing to work its way northwards into central parts of Scotland once again. Still cold near that eastern coast, but down across in the south up to 20 Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit. That's it. Bye for now.
The Empire Windrush brings to Britain 500 Jamaicans, citizens of the British Empire coming to the mother country with good intent.
This is their story. After suffering more than 500,000 casualties in the war, Britain was desperate for labour.
We have skills, experience, expertise that we can actually bring.
One realised we had a racial problem in this country.
We brought music, we brought life.
50 years of Caribbean life in Britain, a major 4-part documentary, Windrush, tonight at 8 on BBC Two.
Something unique is happening. A new shape for the armed forces. Will the government tear up tradition, expand the ranks, or cut the budget? Exclusive access inside the Ministry of Defence as it prepares Britain for future conflict. The men in suits join the men in uniform to fight a paper war. Tomorrow at 8 on BBC Two.
A frightening report of more troubles brewing in the Balkans now on BBC Two from correspondent Phil Rees.